That's one of those more interesting gospels, isn't it? Just think about it for a second. Like if I found out the first day that I could work only 1 hour and get paid the same, I'd hide all day and wait until 5 o'clock to get hired. I mean, what's he thinking? You know, it's like common sense here. But we have to remember a couple of things, and we're of course smart enough to know that when Jesus is giving us these parables, he's teaching us. He's trying to help us to have a new insight. He's trying to help us to truly appreciate something that we have a hard time appreciating. One of the keys to any time you listen to a parable are usually contained in the very first words. And the very first words were, the kingdom of heaven is like. Tuck that into your head. The kingdom of heaven is like. And I think sometimes we forget that part of it because we get so caught up in what just happened in the story that all of us are like, that's ridiculous. That's silly. Come on, who does that? The kingdom of heaven is like. I remember back, I had a gym teacher, and anytime the gym teacher wanted to rally everybody around, he'd go, all right, everybody, listen up. Come on, listen up. And you'd all gather around, and then he'd go over whatever's going to happen in the class and what's going to go on and all the other things. It was his way of saying to the group, all right, something important is about to be said. So listen up. Jesus just gave us a listen up call. This is the last parable he's going to give before he definitively enters into Jerusalem in Matthew's gospel. And the next 3 weeks, we're going to be hearing other parables as well. And so for these 4 weeks, Jesus is kind of giving us I'm speaking here, listen up. Don't miss what I'm saying. Because I think too many of us today, we have this image of Jesus and we've preconceived what we think Jesus ought to be doing and who Jesus ought to be and how he ought to be doing things. And even the leaders of his time had preconceived notions. And so what is your preconceived notion? Now I want you to grapple with that for the next couple of weeks. What is your preconceived notion of Jesus? What is your expectation of him toward you? Because what he just did today is, whatever your preconceived notion doesn't cut it. He wants us to forget some of that for a second so that he can teach us something else. And there's so many different layers to this parable that I could go into, but the one that I want to pick on this particular cycle is God's ways are not our ways. Listen up. God's ways are not our ways. And what God is going on about and what God is doing is often very different than what I would want or what I would do. And so listen up to what Jesus is saying, especially the next couple of weeks. He's going to point blank be giving parables that are meant to basically annoy the religious leaders of his time. He's going to be poking the bear. He's going to say, I only got so much time left, so I want to get it out. And this image that a lot of us have of this, nice pacifist kind of Jesus, he's not going to come across so pacifist these next couple of weeks when he's basically going to compare the religious leaders of that time of a son who speaks one thing but does another. He's going to have these images where he's going to be showing them, hey, you're missing the mark. And so for you and for me, especially today, are we thinking with our way or with God's way? In the parable today, in the first reading, we're told, seek God while he can be found. Go and look for God as he is, not as you think he is. Go and find the God filled with surprises, the God who can turn around and mete out grace to people the same. I'd given a homily many, many years ago. It was a reflection that I gave before I was ordained. And in it, what I was doing is trying to point out the thing that you see between the sacraments. Now, I don't think anybody sitting here, after I say the words of consecration in a few moments, would come up and say that any one host in that ciborium is any more consecrated than any other host in that ciborium. Fair assumption, they're all the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ. No one would ever make an argument that one host is more Jesus than another host. But why, when it comes to something, say, like baptism, do we act differently? Why is it that sometimes we look at someone else, and even though we're both baptized, we look at that other person, yeah, but I'm holier than you. I got you by a good 15, 20 years. Easily I'm holy. I've been praying every day. I'm so good. And yet, we're both baptized. There are people who might be baptized on their deathbed. They get the same exact grace that you get. There is no measuring of that grace. Salvation is salvation, and whenever someone comes to the party, they come to the party. And that's part of what Jesus is trying to teach us. God's ways are not our ways. When God offers his love, when God offers it, it's the same for all. It's the same for everybody. We're the ones who parse it out. We're the ones who have that kind of judgmental side to ourselves. We're the ones who betray God by the way we treat one another. We betray God by the way we treat one another. Now, do we need to help one another? Do we need to correct one another? We do. But we need to do that in a mutual love and a care and concern. And it just seems to me, especially today, with the way things are in our culture and the way things are going on around us, all of us seem to be missing that point. We are all a child of God, and we should care for one another as a child of God. It's a piece of advice that I've been living by myself now. Actually, a spiritual director gave it to me, and I give it to a lot of people when I have the opportunity. Why is it that we look at another person as a problem to fix rather than a person to be loved? When we look at another person sometimes, when we're dealing with a spouse, with a child, we don't start with them as a person to be loved. We start with them as a problem that we need to fix. I'll fix you. You've got a problem. No, listen up, folks. Love the person first. Love comes first. And the person comes first, not the object that you're trying to fix. And so in these next few weeks, Jesus is going to be challenging you and me. He's going to say, listen up, folks, I need your hearts to change. I need your perceptions to be altered. I need the way you look at things to become a lot more acute and to start seeing each other as members of the kingdom of heaven, as a beautiful child of God. And all of us can be very different, and different in our ways, and different in our virtues, and different in our gifts and talents, but we're all striving for the same thing. That same grace that's meted out in equal portions to each and every one of us for the salvation of the soul. So I know all of you want to go into heaven one day. Listen up if you want to get there. See the Jesus as he really is. Hear the Jesus as he really speaks. Appreciate the Jesus that so many people nowadays seem to have imposed on him something that just isn't there. He is a loving Savior. He is a miracle worker. He is a Lord and Savior. But the one thing that he wants from us so desperately is he just wants to have a relationship with us. Whether we started first thing in the morning or got there at the end of the day, he just wants a relationship with us, a personal, loving, caring relationship with us. And it's that same loving and caring relationship that we then extend to one another. And so during the course of this week, I encourage all of you, look at your lives a little bit. Look at some of the preconceived notions you may have. Hear the words of Jesus speaking to your heart and asking you once again, where do you need to grow? Where are you holding back? What is it that keeps you from truly appreciating Jesus and loving Jesus with your whole heart, mind, and soul? What is it that prevents you from loving another in your life, from caring for someone in your life? And then let's work on changing those little things by that grace. You all get the same amount, so use it well. You've all got the same amount. Use it for the kingdom. Let's go out and love one another, starting with the stranger, starting with the person that's sometimes right next to us that we hardly know. Let's start caring about them and seeing them not as a problem to be fixed, but a person to be loved. because we need to start changing something, because this world is headed in the wrong direction. And without some change, nothing changes. And so be the change yourself. Listen up, hear Jesus, and start to put into practice in your life that which is so desperately needed. Care and concern for one another, love for each other, and then proclaim the goodness of the kingdom to one another. In the next few weeks, listen up. God bless you.